let's start with a general question, and that is something I've already alluded to already, and that is, what is, for those of you, for those of us, us, who have careers in opera, concert, song, recording, la la la, what is the difference between concert singing? What is it we've been looking at all day today?
Concert as in like with orchestra or with piano?
Well, there we are. All right, that's great. so it can be with either of us, but now I'm thinking really of singing with orchestra, and it's something that we all know instinctively. But if we're trying to define it, as you've just started, it can get a bit amorphous. But
it depends on the subject. For example, if I'm singing Rebelle Scheherazade, she's a character, and you know, each song has its character, and that's the same as an operatic character. I've always used this rather, I don't know, this coy expression to paint with small brush strokes, and so I apply that to my recital work and to the opera work, so that if I'm drawing on creating a character, I would start with something very small. I would start with reading a book about Julius Caesar, for example, and then fleshing that out. But if I was doing Scheherazade, you know, I'd immerse myself in Arabian Thousand Nights and the stories and the history behind that, just because I'm a nerd. It's got worse, as I've told you.
But of course you can't. But you can't do that in Messiah in the same way, or can you? Or is that, do you do
well,
that?
I have read about Handel and what caused it, and all sorts of books around it. So yes, it's just wonderful. Sometimes you meet some people who are involved in, Handel's work and the work of around the Messiah of the hospital, and it's just extraordinary. I don't know, I was just at St Bartholomew's Hospital. I know it's nothing to do particularly with the Messiah, but it's just all sorts of things are related, and I like that idea that you can come across people who met people who know people and things about a piece of music that you're singing. So I would say it's the same, but in a concert situation, obviously you can't be extrovert and be a character physically, but you can internalize that character, and you can, if it's about a character, if it's a Beethoven Mass or Mass in C minor or something, then it is just about the music, in my opinion. But if this concert is a character, you're playing a character, it's the same as opera, but obviously it's to do with the type of character and the environment you're in.
Is it how, Joe and Mark, is that your kind of take on things about how similar it might be to do this as opposed to that, or?
I mean, I think so many oratories do have their own sort of atmosphere around them. I think Beethoven 9, there is nothing like it. I mean, it's not even like Mrs. Solemnis. Mrs. Solemnis has a sort of a shape to it, which huge singer, particularly for the choruses. I mean, Beethoven 9 is something that I think when you got the guys to sing it as soloists, it came alive for me. I mean, I heard an energy behind it that actually
And
is.
it's a political statement.
Yeah, and that's what Beethoven is. He's railing against the gods, or the god at all moments, and it's kind of willful music. Whereas the Haydn was the, as I'm saying to the guys earlier, it was the friendliest composer of the lot. I mean, he was funny, he was good-humoured, he loved his musicians, he gave them lots of things that were absolutely enjoyable to do. And there's a delight in it, and that's what, when people sort of, when you knew a little bit more what was coming up, then you could really sort of show that delight and share that delight with the audience. I would say be idealistic about oratorios. I mean, yes, there's been lots of times when it's not ideal. You don't get enough rehearsal time. You don't get, well, the orchestra's not terribly good. But yourself, I think you should go in with a sort of generous idealism for performance, for loving the music. Don't sing anything you don't like.
Well,
I hate. I really hate doing master classes and somebody's brought a dreary song by John Ireland. And you sort of think, why? Why are you doing that? When there's so much great, and it's not.
Don't set the fence not.
John Ireland did write some very beautiful music. So, but there are a fair few.
Yeah, for example, Child of Our Time is the advice performed with you. But it's an operatic piece. It's a story, it's a through composed story, but it's an oratorio.
Yeah. And no matter which platform we're singing on, we sing, we were talking about this in our morning session, we sing because we like to communicate, we like to tell a story. The composer has chosen some words that said something to them, and they thought, I can somehow elaborate on these words and make them more beautiful or more expressive. And they've gone, okay, words, I'll put my music on. And then musicians upon musicians have come along and gone, when I interpret it like this, and I think as long as you've got a real, if it's a character that you're playing, or that you're singing, say like Adam or Eve, or you're the day of creation, or you're singing a part of Messiah, or you're reflecting on something in one of the passions, you've got a really clear idea of what it is that you're communicating. You will communicate it to your audience, and they will take something else. They will then have it. It's like reading a book. We all read a book, and we will all have a different idea of what the character looks like and which room they're in. It's exactly the same with music, I think. And if I communicate it honestly and really powerfully to you, then you have much more chance of going, yeah, I buy into that, and I buy into it in my way. It's that, that's the reason that we go in to listen to music, and that's the reason why we are up here giving music. It's a two-way thing.
And I think actually Joe's absolutely right. In fact, I think it's a three-way thing in the end, because there's the text you're using, which is the composer plus, and that includes the poet or the person who's written the libretto or whatever. There's that element, there's the performer element, and there's the audience. And actually, the audience are incredibly important. It's a matter of making all of those three parts have a sort of, in a way, an equal importance, because we need your eyes.
Yeah.
We need as performers to know that you're not, either fussing. And one of the great things about being an oratorio singer is actually you look at you sit there for quite a long time looking at the audience. You can see who's doing that or who's on that way. You're totally visible to us. We spend a lot of time actually.
Can I put a mark in the sand for this? Because I was, of course, thinking in the weeks coming up to this day, I was thinking, what are the differences between opera and oratorio and a song recital? What are the basic differences? And one of them you've just mentioned there. It's a funny thing about a gig, and I'll just take Messiah. This is the easy starting place. That the solo team will most likely be on stage, often seated right next to the conductor. I mean, the absolute holy spot sometimes you get a chance to sit on the side and wander in, but often you're just sitting right in front of the audience. Every soprano knows that however much you warm up in your dressing room before the concert,
45
you
minutes.
then sit there for 45 minutes. And the tenor knows that he starts the evening, and then he sits down and doesn't sing for hours. The mezzo is often finished by if they're going to cut anything in the third part, the mezzo is often finished before the interval. It's an odd shape, and we sit there and we look at you. And honestly, part of the fun of an oratorio like that is to see if you can remain in the present for the whole piece. So, particularly on tour, Messiah after Messiah, and you are there.
Oh my God.
And you are there. We see everything. So the times when I got up in a Messiah and I said in the third part, 11:15 somewhere in Madrid, and yet you say, "We shall not all sleep." So the mark, a particular mark for me is that if you are used to an opera where your character comes in and then sings within a few seconds or a minute or so, so you've had time in the dressing room to do all this stuff, warm up one last, and then you get on stage and then you're in. That is not the shape of an oratorio. And similarly, the song recital is you on stage singing for 3/4 of an hour and go, 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 go. The focus is all yours. And it's just so different when you just sit and listen to the chorus, tenor. So it's a different thing.
I was going to add one, you said three things. Let's say the fourth thing for me is you, the singer. What are you feeling about it?
That was the second one.
Oh, I'm sorry, that was the second one. I beg your pardon.
Performer, music.
I beg your pardon. I
You can come back to the performer, makes the fourth, because we're quite important.
Sorry. But yes, what does that mean? That means that if you are, how you're feeling that day, if you've got a horrible period pain, if somebody died in your family recently, if this has been a world calamity, there's been something which you can pin your aria on, maybe something to help the catharsis for you without being sentimental. That's not something I like at all, but just something to, Barmody, for example, Have Mercy Lord, you can make that personal for you. So the show and tell is not a thing, it's very much you draw people. I was talking to Daisy singing as with Rosie's Steps, draw us in, don't tell us about it, just let us be wowed by your phrasing and your intensity. And I think that's something that on your 9th Messiah, tour, you just sort of think, what can I add to He Was Despised Tonight? What I refuse to become a machine or cynical. I'm not. I love this piece, it's amazing. So how can I, who's he? Who is he? Ask these questions. What does he mean to me? I'm not remotely religious, I'm saying that at all, but whatever he is, and what that feeling is that you have for that aria, make it genuine, make it real.
So that's a good watchword, it's another mark in the sound there. I'm aware that there are people in the room here who are emerging into their careers. So just with that in mind, can I ask, we'll go down the line starting at the higher voice end, can I ask what concerts, oratorios, whatever that is, oratorio thing, what that has done for you in your career? Is that a question? How has it shaped your career singing in the concert stage as opposed to opera and so on?
Well, for me, I mean, that's mainly what I do. That's really chosen and mercifully had opportunity to make that my career. I did a bit of opera at the beginning. It doesn't really fit with us as a family, and I think that you just have to see what your situation is. And it's work, but it's what we love and what makes us us as well, isn't it?
Can I just ask, sorry to butt in, can I just ask you to unpack it doesn't fit with our family? Can you explain what that means?
Well, my husband has an opinion on how long I'm away for. Opera generally is you go somewhere for 6 weeks, rehearse, and then do 2 or 3 weeks of run. Well, while you're single, that's cool. While you're married, when you've got babies or kids in school, babies are fine. I used to take my mum and baby with me, and we schlepped all over Europe, bless her. We still recount stories. My daughter is literally going off to university on Saturday, but 18 years ago, had the baby. A couple of months later, right, come on mum, off to Stuttgart, and we boarded a plane with all the paraphernalia, and we had some really lovely times. But you just have to make it work for you. Life carries on, and you, as your family unit, decide what works for you, you know, and what is manageable, and what do you really love doing. And I really love doing concerts.
Was there a time when your agent said, "Jo, we really ought to get you into opera"?
Well, yes, a bit, because it's easier for them, I think. You're there for a long period, and it, you know, that builds a career and all that malarkey. But I just didn't really have such a passion to do that, and probably would have had a much bigger career if I hadn't done. But I've done what I've loved, and I hope I've done it well, and I'm doing it well as much as is there. And you know, that's all you can do, isn't it? I certainly wasn't out and chasing it, and you have to, in this business, you have to want to do it enough to, you know, to pay on the way with whatever you're going to have to give way to in life. And I think that's for everybody. You should take that and let that be a kind of liberating thing. I do opera. Go, do it. You'll live in brilliant places for great chunks of the year. You'll really get to know those people. You know, I get to see my mates once in a while, and you hook up, and it's brilliant, and it's good fun, and then you don't see them, and that's a bit sad. But you know,
Facebook's great.
There you go.
Facebook is
well,
great.
Facebook is great, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, so concert is just like big boom for me. I loved it, and like I say, you know, it's different now post Brexit, post COVID. The world is a different place, and there's not so much around. But if you can get it, nice work.
Sarah, what about, tell us how it impacts on you.
I find oratorio work very stressful. It's the most nervy I get, yes. Because possibly I'm a perfectionist and I want to do the best I can, but I feel quite restricted in a lineup. I feel I'm a natural opera singer in the sense that, or a recitalist, in that I have my own space around me and that I can screw up on my own, and you know, or in an opera situation, say baritones from ending up in the pit. Or just be somebody else, which is what a recitalist is. It also is what an opera singer is. Maybe being myself on the oratorio platform is quite scary. I mean, I don't know, I'm no psychotherapist, but I find the honesty of this music, the directness, and you know, I was quite traumatised by working with Philippe Herbeck. I mean, I learned a lot, my gosh, about phrasing and singing Baroque, which then sort of bled into Handel. You know, I learned how instruments phrase, and rubato, we were talking about rubato today a lot, and all that knowledge I took with me. But he scared the hell out of me, standing up there. He never seemed satisfied with any of us, not just me. It's a thing with him. And I found that very stressful. And then you work with people like Richard Egar, and you think, what a breath of fresh air. You know, here's somebody who just loves being on stage with you and isn't going to demand too much. So I've found maybe it's the conductors I've worked with, and they're not all the same, but I've grown up with a slight psychosis that I find oratorio extremely stressful. That doesn't mean I don't enjoy it in some mad way, but it is my least favourite. I'm not saying the music is my least favourite by any means, but it is my least favourite, and I've just thought this up right now. I've never said this before. It just occurred to me. Because I sort of don't want to let anyone down, don't want to sing the wrong notes, don't want to upset the quartet, don't want to come in at the wrong time and put someone off. Oh God, must sing that straight, must be a perfect requiem. The Mozart requiem stresses me out more than anything I can mention. Can never breathe that, whatever it record. It's just, ooh!
May I put a second marker in the sand about the differences between these genres, if you want to call them that, and that is the shape, the length of rehearsal period. So you've alluded to it in terms of bringing up a family, and Sarah, you've alluded to it in terms of how long it takes to get comfortable in a place. So if in an opera you have weeks and weeks of rehearsal with people, then the whole thing embeds, and you got the first 2 or 3 weeks to make some hilarious mistakes. and then by the time you get to the fourth week and you go on stage and stage rehearsal, blah, 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 by the time you get to the dress rehearsal, by the time you get to the opening night, everything is automatic and second nature in a way that leaves you room to play.
Yeah, that would be quite nice.
But
Missed a trick there.
we've both alluded to it already today, the speed with which things happen, either in this country, but even abroad, that you might have 3, 2 or 1 day in which to make it all happen.
In which time you're usually jet lagged if it's eves.
Yeah. So that's a second marker. Think of markers.
I was very struck with the transformation of the Haydn from a sort of reading it, sort of what's coming next, and by the end of just half an hour working with Joe, an ability to know what was coming next, and to then sort of give it generously to the listeners, and that sort of preparation. Really knowing your stuff. If you're singing in German, or if you're singing it in a foreign language to you, being perfect. I mean, like not making mistakes. I think there's no excuses for not having that sort of level of preparation. No, just absolutely knowing what you're singing about, of course. Having some ideas of your own. You may be working with conductors who sort of insist on a particular way of doing things, but also you can bring your own musicality and your own sort of thoughts and reading and other things to bring to it. But I would just have this sort of sense that when you take a breath, you know what you're going to sing, and I use the word inspiration, which means in English taking in a breath, inspiration, as well as taking in an idea, and those two things have to go absolutely simultaneously, so that the breath can then deliver the phrase. And I think in oratorio it is about it's about reaching people, and I think Sarah's absolutely right. They contain some of the most profound thoughts in music. We were working on Lyra Buke of Broken His Heart from Messiah this morning, and that is telling us, it really is telling the moment of the passion, that you're looking at a man who's just about to be crucified, and then is crucified, and looking at the sorrow of that. Have that as a sort of whole sort of thought process. Where are we in the story? It doesn't always have to be tragic. In creation, you're doing the most delightful, imaginative, sometimes funny moments where you can absolutely sort of bring it, but you've got to bring it alive. And if it's sort of dutifully just nice bit of singing, it's
well, apart from anything, you won't be booked again. I mean, that's the bottom line. I loved your comment. There's an agent, international agent in the room, and only one person is going to be booked. Who's it going to be? I love that because everybody just performed their song.
Yeah. It's like, oh, heads out copies, smiles on.
That was absolutely extraordinary.
What was your route in that, Mark? Because did you set out as a young singer with those thoughts in mind, or have you arrived at those thoughts about what you're doing later in life?
I think you pick up different things from different people. I sang in choruses for the first 10 years of my sort of professional life. Sort of time with Sarah.
16.
There were great times, great tours, great sort of. It was fun. It was, we had a lot of fun. We came up with a chorus in Aix-en-Provence, and just enjoy those times. But I always sort of wanted to do whatever I was doing as well as possible. And I was lucky, I got an audition with Bill Christie and his opera song. So I had a moment that sort of just the I took a different path for a while. I did quite a lot of my early solo singing in Baroque music, but particularly on the continent. A lot with Philippe, and a lot. I got two. It was sort of real yin and yang from Bill Christie and from Philippe, because Philippe was a serious text bound, doing everything from the bass of the continuo. There are lots of sort of really good practice that you could learn from him. Yeah, he may not have been a generous conductor and may of course,
anxiety, yeah.
But I learned a lot about singing Bach from him. But then I also learned theatricality from Bill Christie. And the great thing is that Philippe concentrated on Bach and Bill concentrated on Handel
Which is who they were in a way.
Yeah, exactly. Handel and also the French Baroque. But that theatrical quality and the sort of actually audiences. I mean, I'll never forget Bill Christie leaving a stage with Bill Christie. We were in Versailles. We were doing a concert performance of Castro y Polux of Ramadan, and there was a sort of a box very close to the stage, and there were four sort of rather smart-looking Parisians who were just sort of sitting there. We were going off, and most of the audience was clapping, and these four were not clapping. And he turned to them and said, "Applaudissez, partez." He had a visceral kind of reaction to audiences that he needed them to engage. And he would be furious. I mean, he hated coughing. He hated the phone going off and there'd be those. But it was some of it was because he was a pain in the arse. But a lot of it was also because he was passionate about what we were doing. He thought Rameau was a great composer. This was a great piece we're doing, and that's sort of the investment I think you as young singers, young performers want to sort of find is it's really great what we're doing. Whether it's the War Requiem or Creation or even Beethoven 9, there's something Beethoven 9. It's beyond what I can really manage myself. In many ways vocally, but there's a life force behind it, which you just and that sort of sense of joy you want to communicate. Get on the ride.
Can I ask you again, with younger singers in mind? You two were mentioning about the 16, having been on the choral scene in London. I was a bit around that a little bit, but presumably you were singing on the side. Can I talk about amateur choral scene in this country in particular, and ask if you were soloing for those sort of people in your younger years?
Yeah.
What was that like? What did you?
You mean as a chorister?
No, I mean actually as a soloist. So there you are on the 16, doing that job, but at the same time, were you singing
Basildon
Mill Hill. I was going to say Billingshurst Choral Society. Yes.
What was that like? What was that? Tell me about that period of your life.
I had a wonderful concert of the Merry Widow. Do I mean the Merry Widow? No, the Merry Wives of Windsor, where I played both Elizabeth and Elizabeth and Mary Stuart. I had to cut my own head off or something. I don't know. I had to explain it to the audience that the other singer had gone sick, so I would step in. Can we get the laughter over with now? She is going to decapitate herself. But yes, I mean, many great Messiah experience. Learning to sit there for all that time and be conscious and aware, and aware of which bits I felt more comfortable with, and how to manage those long gaps between singing and arias, and to work through the nerves, and to understand what you can bring to something that is more than just perfunctory, because we've all done performances that you just think, well, that was terrible, from me, I mean. And so you learn courage, I would say, in those early days. You learn to be brave. You learn to sort of say, I am going to go for that note, and if it splatters to the four winds, well, maybe, but, you know, like...
No one dies.
No one dies, yeah, I mean, it's just really... It mattered to me as much then as it does now. Nothing's changed. I think if you have high standards, then you have high standards, end of.
Yeah.
And if you don't have, most people do have high standards, but if you don't care much, then I don't think you're going to go very far. I think you have to really, really care, really want to do a good job. And that happens because you love it. I'm not saying you can love every piece of music you sing. I like listening to people sing the Stabat Mater by Rossini. I personally don't like to sing it myself. And you sang it really wonderfully today, but I never enjoyed singing it. So don't sing it, Sarah. You know, that would be my... yeah.
I'm going to put it's not a marker this time, this is a little yellow post-it note this time. and that is that we were saying something, who said it earlier on about not singing? You just said something about not singing the Stabat Mater, but someone made a comment, when the phone went and they said, are you free Saturday? The first thing is, yes I am, before they said, and there's no fee, before they said what the piece was. And it might, in my case, your Stabat Mater is my Carmina Burana. And then I have to go, okay, but it's the job. So we were talking earlier on, someone made a comment about having a choice, and that choice I feel comes later in one's life. But at the time it felt it was a job, I will go out and do it, whatever. What was your experience, Jo?
So most of my early choral society things were through college, through the concerts office. I'm sure we've all been there, and very grateful for, you know, 100 quid here, 100 quid there, and more importantly, for being able to get out there and, you know, put the wheels on the road and actually get one of these out. You work with some lovely people. They're all absolutely thrilled that you're there. So, you know, there's nothing not to like. And I think every time we go out, whether we're just out of college or further on in careers, I can learn so much from my colleagues. Even, you know, at any time, I can see things that I don't want to do. I can see things that I do want to do. I was telling the girls earlier that I didn't have I don't know, we just didn't go to many concerts when I was a kid, but my dad took me to see the Matthew Passion when I was about 15 in the De Montfort Hall in Leicester. And Catherine Wynne Rogers was there. Well, we were at the back, tiny. And wow, she blew me away. She was there when she was singing, she was there when she wasn't singing, she was there. And I just thought, that I want to do that, and that was it. You know, it was like, yes, the flame that was in me was, and you can do that. You know, sitting alongside any of your colleagues, you know, you can see things. I'm never going to sit down, shut my book. I've seen so many colleagues that I'm not going to do that. They can if they want, but I'm like, oh
no. Sorry, are we talking about crossing notes?
No. Just kind of sitting back and going, all right.
Yeah.
I've done my solo, thank you very much. You know, and they sort of slouch down. It's just that's a real pet hate of mine.
I've never seen anyone do that.
Oh, I've seen plenty.
It's a great thing about singers. The concert's finished when I finish my aria. I've seen that. And in fact, I'm going to come back this way, but just Jo, on that theme, just surfing that idea, are there things you can remember working out that you give yourself right on at all this? Things to do that will get you invited back? What would you do? What things did you do to make sure that you got the return invitation?
Sing well. Love it. Just be generally nice. Be yourself. You know, I think people want to see that, not like a mask go on. Be yourself. People have booked you because they like you and they like the sound that you make. And they have invited you to the table because they think that, like you were saying, Mark, that, you know, you can bring your musicality. That's why they want you. You've got a unique voice. No one else has got your voice. This person likes it enough and thinks that will probably go well with these, you know, over the ATV. So be yourself. I don't know, kind of gauge the kind of place that you're going and dress appropriately. That's always a good thing. I don't know whether it gets you asked back a bit, but you know, I remember going to Leeds once, Leeds Choral Society, and this old lady came up to me afterwards and she went, "Well, I'm glad you, I literally hadn't gone any smarter than this." She said, "I don't know why he's coming in a hoodie." It's like, well, that's great, but that mattered to her, you know. It doesn't get you asked back. It's what you do on the concert platform, isn't it? And I don't know. I don't know what's got to ask me
That
back,
might be
actually.
true.
I'm lucky.
There might be more to it than that, but yes,
Sure there is.
Concerts are a good place.
I don't think I went very deep there. It'll get better as it goes along the line.
Mike, have you got any particular things that you can think, particularly as a younger man going on, were there things you were consciously doing to make sure that the promoter came away thinking, "I like that Mark Padmore. I like that Michael Padmore. He was very good."
Well, I told this story earlier on, but I think, forgive me for just repeating it, but there is a very famous Huddersfield Choral Society story of a young tenor who got engaged. It didn't go terribly well in delivery, and he was given his cheque at the end by the treasurer of Huddersfield Choral Societies. "We don't blame thee, lad. We blame them that sent thee."
Oh my goodness.
So you want to avoid that. No, I would say that
That's horrific. Like, crush me now.
I would say there's another quote that I love, which is, "Nothing great was ever achieved without enthusiasm." And actually, you know, to find enthusiasm for what you're doing and to share it, you know, to be generous with your colleagues. You know, it is actually sometimes quite nice to say, "That was really good." You know,
Oh yes.
there's nothing, you know,
supportive and generous.
because we're all, you know, we all suffer from nerves and from anxieties to whether it's going all right. And actually, collegial, you know, good generosity is hugely important, and it'll carry you a long way. You will probably get it back as well if you're generous, you know, to start off with. You find that, you know, you create a virtuous circle. Nothing worse than somebody who's sort of, you know.
Looks down at you as well.
Or, you know, so any sort of, so just don't be unhelpful. Be really, you know, and hopefully you'll get that back in return.
What about you, Roddy? What do you?
Well, I'm hearing exactly what you say. I might just say that there's one experience in this country, because it's most likely that you'll work with a mate. If, you know, after 2 years, 5, 10, 20, 30 years, it's most likely in the UK seeing a concert like this, you will end up with a team that you mostly know. When you go abroad, there's obviously a much wider pool, and it's less likely. And I think, I almost said we British, but that's an allusion to something that I'm not allowed to say anymore. I think that we have a shorthand of trust that is something we might take for granted sometimes, but we just know each other, and and it's very speedy. And you go abroad sometimes and you find a team, an international team, and there are people wearing armour. The defensive shields are up in a way that just takes longer to penetrate. And maybe it's not so much to do with nationalities as to do with types of person. Maybe in our industry people are more happy to be generous.
Do you research who you're singing with? Do you your agent sends you a list, and do you find out about them?
Yeah, I do, because it's very easy to nowadays.
Yeah.
And not only can I find out the names and work out how to pronounce it, but also I can see them sing on YouTube, and often I can see them being interviewed on YouTube. And that's really interesting, hear their speaking voice and hear them talk about themselves.
I think that's very an interesting thing to do, and it can break the ice, because you can even know them slightly. And it's not just
Without being too stalkery. But I am aware of what you were just saying, Mark, about that moment you notice your college as being a little bit uptight, and you say, well done with your aria. And go, it's not happened to me often by any means, but I've just been aware that
You've got a beautiful voice. Yes, I know.
it's partly, I think it's actually partly an English cultural thing, that when you meet someone new, the first thing you do, I was saying this to Brenda, the first thing you do is you offer a vulnerability, so that they can then bond with their vulnerability, and then you can shake hands. For example, you turn up, I really haven't looked at this. You say, oh no, me neither. Oh gosh. And then you read it perfectly. That's how we do it in this country. But I was saying to Miranda, I once did this to a conductor. She's an English conductor, but she's been in Germany so long that she's pretty much, in fact, she's almost got a German accent. And I said to her, this is slightly off topic, this is opera. But I said to her, she said, have you sung, you've probably sung Papageddon many, many times. And I said, oh, yes, I have. I said, but not in German. Thinking she'd say, oh, don't worry, we'll see you through. And she said, oh. This singing in German is a really different thing. And I kind of thought, oh my God, I'm going to be sacked. I haven't sung a note. So, in terms of meeting new people, this is something.
So I was doing a Scheherazade in the Proms in 2008. My favourite piece, I learned it inside out, back to front. Still made a mistake in the concert, but never mind. I was doing it without the music, and that was my thing. No music, live every moment, enjoy every moment. But the first rehearsal, I said to the conductor, you know, oh, God, I'm so happy to be singing this jewel of a piece. And then later it came out in concert, oh, this is my first time. She went, uh-oh. I was really offended. I thought, I worked so hard at this piece. You know, you'd have to have a train going through and I wouldn't go wrong. And I just made one slight early entry. It was nothing big. I just repeated the line, but it was. She distracted me actually because it was incredibly slow. It was incredibly slow. When you listen to the boulettes, I'd learned it listening to Anne-Sophie von Otter. I mean, I'd learned it, but then I listened to Anne-Sophie von Otter in the boulettes, and so I'd learned his tempos, which are probably on the fast side. But you know, there were other performances I enjoyed, but this was unbelievably slow, and I was incredibly distracted by it all. And it was actually her performance, so I thought it was very mean of her to go uh-oh, because I would pay money. I'd put a bet on it that it was her first performance as well. But I didn't ask that of her, because I wouldn't. I just wouldn't. It doesn't interest me whether it's her first performance of it or not. If she's prepared it or he's prepared it, that's it. That's the end of it.
Well, you've opened a can of worms here. So one of my questions I'm not looking at here is about conductors. Maybe we've talked a bit about colleagues, and I'd love to talk a bit about conductors for 2 minutes. 1 minute, 30 seconds, that should do, shouldn't it? Sorry, that's very rude. I would love to talk about conductors, and again, I would love to ask you to throw yourself back in your career and just remember how it was, but also, you know, up to the present day. And I'd love to know how you manage conductor if, as we say, the rehearsal period is tight. Maybe it's a conductor you've met before, and then you've got a day and a half, 2 days, 2.5 days to put something on stage. So how does that work for you?
Honestly, I think there's nothing quite like being well prepared.
Yeah,
you know, just because conductors are often not a great deal of help. You know, they do have other. You know, they've got often in a big oratorio they may have 50, 100 people else to deal with, and as I think you said earlier, you know, they don't want to be spending time sort of micromanaging soloists. So come absolutely knowing your stuff and being able to deliver it.
And deliver it stylistically in the correct style. So, you know, make sure you don't sing Puccini in Handel, you know, Puccini style. Just really do some study and listen to recordings of Baroque music. I'm saying this to the young singers here. You know, make sure that you understand stylistically where you're coming from so that you don't get the hackles up of the slightly tetchy ones. you know, that you are not going to offend anybody by swooping up to notes in Handel, or, you know, this kind of thing, that you just stylistically are on it, you know what you're singing, and likewise with Puccini or Rossini or whatever, you know the style.
Just a little flag off. We might have a chance to talk about ornamentation in Baroque. We'll see if there's a rabbit hole big enough for us all to fit down in a second. But
anyway, that's all.
Can I just also raise the business with iPads, because I'm finding iPads incredibly helpful for certain things, certainly for sort of, you know, the process of learning. I don't think they look very good in oratorio, personally. And you know, it may be sort of a matter of choosing. I've certainly said to the guys this morning, if you're doing Bach, I would get Bernhardt study scores. So not the vocal scores. You actually get the little study scores. Partly because then you've got the orchestral parts there, so you can see all the obligato writing, and it transforms it. You also don't have rubbish translations, which don't really sort of fit totally, and you almost never sing them in that particular translation, even if you sing the oratorio in a translation. So those study scores, and you can do that with Mozart Requiem, you can do it with so many things. You've got to have reasonable eyesight, or you've got to know it. You know, quite honestly, you know, a lot of this stuff you can learn from memory practically, you know, pretty quickly. But it is important, that look, and the Bärenreiter is actually not much bigger than that. So you can have it in one hand quite happily, and then you can actually communicate much more easily. The big vocal scores often are very heavy, and they're not good then for posture and all sorts of things. And the iPads similarly, you know, you're sort of having to do it a little bit that way, and I think that's going to be a problem eventually for singers.
I just throw one thing in. I noticed Emma Kirkby a long time ago. Emma Kirkby, I did a Messiah with her. I spent most of the time in all the time in all actually. She had her Messiah copy, just photocopied, just her bits, which she barely looked at. But it meant that rather than have the full score of Messiah, this big chunky thing, she just had a little black folder with bits in. And I've done the same ever since. Actually, I don't really care who's singing anything else, so I just. Sorry. What I mean to say is, I now know how it goes. I now know when it's my turn to stand up. So I just sit and listen to the concert.
You can be a good example of listening. I mean, I did the John Passions with the OAE with no conductor, and we had Sarah Connolly doing some text at the beginning and a text in the middle as a sort of sermon. But he sat on the stage, and he was just like an ideal audience member, because he was sitting there with attention, sort of listening to what was going on, and he was present at all moments. And actually, that is a very good. I mean, not only was that sort of a good collegial example, but it was actually a fantastic example for the audience to say, "Oh yes, we're supposed to pay attention." To this, you know, that it actually means something, and Simon was just there, not you know, not making a big deal of it, but there was no moment. I mean, it's because he's an actor that he knows what. If you're on the stage, you're listening to your audience. So that, yeah.
I'm into that. Joe, I'm going to throw conductors back to you and come back again. Can you remember having to navigate something difficult, or someone who just made everything so easy for
Well,
you?
both sides of the coin, actually. I'm hoping that they've kind of got a little less under the thumb. I hope so. Some of them can get you in knots, and the best thing is to really, again, try and be true to yourself. But it's so easy, particularly when you're young, to feel undermined. Remember, that is not kind, okay? And that's when you and your colleagues have to stick together. Because some people, for some reason, think that it's great just to single one person out. And if you're that person under the beam, then colleagues get around them and keep saying, oh, it sounds good. You know, be honest with them if there's something that they could improve, or you know, take them out for a drink after it, or whatever. And then conversely,
But let them ask you, what do you think, rather than offer unsolicited
oh yes,
advice. So I know you didn't mean that. I just think it's really important.
Yeah, no, put that
Never
out
to
there,
say anything to a colleague
Ooh,
unless
yeah.
they say to you, what do you think?
Yeah.
3 times.
3 times.
It's true, yeah.
And then be bloody careful what you say.
It's not great. I mean, I wouldn't offer too much, would you?
No,
Just say, look, don't worry, just take no notice, what you're doing is fine, just keep doing what you do. Because you know that the next project, someone else will, you know, will shift and the fund will be on them. Really hopeful that there aren't so many people around like that and naming absolutely no names. I've had so many lovely conductors, and that, you know, they're the people that you want to work with. They want to work with you. They want you to do the best that you can, and they somehow make you believe that you know, sometimes I'm standing there and I'm like, I could do anything, and actually I can't, but I think that I can in that moment, and therefore I do. And I'm like, whoa, I don't know where that came from, and you've just been inspired, and they're the conductors that you want to work with again, and hopefully that's, you know, that's coming from both sides. They think, well, that was fun, that was exciting, you know, you've got to be a good listening, you listen to what they say, you try and do it, and also you come with your musicality, with your instrument, and you can do whatever you can do with whatever they're asking. But you can't do the impossible, and if you get it absolutely bang on in the rehearsal, you probably will never do that exactly again. So if they're asking for exactly the same each time, they're living in cuckoo land. You do your best, and they will only get that if they support you. Yeah, I don't know what to say about the bad ones.
Well, actually, I might make a comment, but not about the bad ones, but just about protecting oneself against against experiences, particularly in the amateur world, and actually sometimes beyond there. It's something that Sarah was saying. You were saying about Scheherazade, about tempo thing. You can do a great deal of preparation by yourself, as Mark's saying, about being totally prepared for the piece. You turn up on the afternoon of the show, and the conductor might say in the rehearsal, "This tempo okay, dear boy?" And you go, yeah, that's fine. Comes the show, and for whatever reason, suddenly the tempo is something completely different, and you think, holy moly! And if I could give myself advice from the way all those years ago, I would say to Roddy, sing your aria a little bit too fast, sing it crucifyingly slowly, and the tempo could be anything in between on the day itself.
In your practice, yeah.
And those things that you set up to do, I can do this in one breath, you know, it's sort of fine. There's suddenly, oh no! So there's a great deal of just management of someone. You said conductors may not be so much help, and I found that to be true, which means that there's conductors that are a help. My goodness, they stick in my memory. They stick strong in my memory. But and one of the things, a little pet thing. So I'm just going to say it. I love a piano rehearsal because it's the moment when the conductor has your sole attention, or the other way around. So you're in the room with them, and they get a chance to listen to you, and do a little thing whereby they think, "Gosh, that was quite good." They say inside, "This person's prepared. They really know what they're doing. I better interfere." Yes, I think, and then bar 36, I think, and then they start interfering in such a way that I really need you to make sure that this is and what's stuff. And
Well, you sang 2 quavers instead of dotted quavers.
Yes.
Oh,
Got you.
Got you. Yeah,
So
I really did feel got the other day.
Yeah.
Just because I dared to be
Sing
careless
something.
enough to make a
But
mistake.
the beautiful thing about that is to protect yourself and just smile and not. That's a very good way to smile on. So of course, marketing, all this sort of stuff. Come the rehearsals, the next rehearsal with the band and with the choir, they're so busy at doing crowd control, and all those tiny things they asked of you, couldn't you hear it? It's not, you're no longer in their focus. And I've seen that so often. So a moment that you might think, I'm being got at here, someone's needling me. That's normally just them saying, don't forget, I'm the conductor and I'm in charge. And you just say, of course you are. And then once that little dance has happened, then on we go, and we can all concentrate on making something that's going to be
wise
worthwhile.
advice.
Well, yes, unless sorry, beg your pardon.
I know, no, sorry. I was just going to say from the other side, as someone who does conduct oratorios as well, is I love it when the singer says, can I come over beforehand and can we go through it? Or even on the phone or even on Zoom or whatever, because it's so great to do that beforehand and then sort out those things, everyone feels much happier. So, and it's amazing how often I've said to people, do you want to get together before the day? And they say, no, don't worry. And then on the day actually you think, possibly would have been a good idea. Because we could have saved a lot of time and sorted out a lot, and saved your voice as well.
Yeah.
Which of course you won't need to rehearse as much on the day if you've done that before normally.
You bring to mind another quick anecdote just to share with you all. This was years ago on one of those assisted schemes where someone pays our fees, ESSO or someone pays our fees. So we got to go all around the country and do amazing things, including one of those early Elgar oratorios. I don't remember which one.
St George and the Banner or something.
St George and the Gas. It was something with a big, really chunky tenor part to it. And this lovely young tenor, for the piano rehearsal before lunch, sang full throttle. It was fantastic. It was amazing. And in the afternoon rehearsal with the band, you know, courageous, slightly less so. And then come the show. So I learned a lesson that day just from observing that. So he could have saved himself by doing that, by marking one thing, but also by doing that process in advance. That's a lovely idea, being proactive in that sort of way.
And Mark, how would you feel, if you have a question for a conductor, how would you approach that? Most conductors, big orchestra, choir, busy people. Now, you had a question that really needed answering, but perhaps not at that exact moment. How would you?
Yeah, I think timing is quite important.
Yeah.
What you don't want to do is embarrass a conductor in front of an orchestra, because they don't like that.
Who would?
And there have been various sort of ways in which that can happen to a conductor. In fact, it happens to conductors all the time. It's when they've done a really nice sort of poetic explanation of how they want something in the orchestra phrased, and given some sort of good textual reason for it, and then the trumpet says, "Do you want it louder or softer?" Those and the deflation that you see in a conductor at those moments is a terrible thing, really. So again, the conductor should be a colleague. I mean, in the old days, it was tougher. The conductor was the king.
Maestro is still a word that's used mostly abroad. I don't like it, but it's kind of normal.
Harnoncourt, who used to play in an orchestra, he used to be a cellist, and he was interviewed on BBC, and he said the only person I ever called Maestro was my hairdresser. That's the sort of level I think of it as well. That it's useful for certain situations. Never use Maestro. It's usually used in a pejorative tone of voice from orchestras, and it's not helpful. Of course, when times are changing. It's fantastic that there are so many more women conducting, and it is changing the atmosphere. That the orchestras are changing. There's a sort of, I think I was doing Beethoven 9 at some point and just wanted to sort of see some old videos of it, and I got a YouTube of I think it was Bernstein conducting the Vienna film from the 1980s, and it looked ridiculous. All of these men in white tie and tails, playing this piece with this kind of serious sort of face on the whole time. Life has moved on, thank God, from those days, and we are sort of. There is a more sense of collaboration and of joint enterprise in this, and I think For classical, I don't think classical music's dying at all. I think it's actually, there are lots of examples where it's really vibrant and really, and we can communicate with people. There are lots of people who love singing amateur choruses still. It's a joy, and it brings people together. And I think we've got to make sure that we are sort of helping that celebration and for people to sort of find that and do what we do as well as possible. With that sort of sense that it is important. Conductors, they are human beings. And
Are they?
they are.
I would argue that.
But
Not all,
honestly,
obviously.
no. But I would think we have to have an attitude towards them that is. There are ways to reach people, and to sort of to have sort of communication with people. And I think, find your moment. If there is something that you really don't like, that they've got slow or something, find a way of sort of reaching them gently, so that they can, and also that they often benefit from a little bit of encouragement. And I'd say, to privately, I might say some different things about conductors, but certainly I think in
For
public.
me, it's been 50-50. 50 have been bloody brilliant, and like Mark Elder, and so very encouraging, and Simon Rattle and Ed Gardner, and really great people along the way. So many have been fantastic, but then there's been the demoralising lot, mostly in the early music scene. I don't really mean Philippe. He was not deliberately demoralising. It's just the way he is. He wasn't nasty, although I have seen him be a bit nasty. But I think on the whole, it's a personality thing, and it's all very well saying, be nice, be prepared, and everything, which is great. But just like in all walks of life, there are personality clashes. In which case, I would suggest to just step back. If you see to manage it, if you see that they're onto you because they're challenged by you in some way, they take umbrage, they take exception to you, and you can see that it's not going to go well. I would just step back and say, how can I, to yourself, what can I do to make this better, rather than go in and poke the nest.
Yes, that can sometimes end in violence. And I'll just sidestep, because I noticed the time here, and suggest what? I've got my eye on the clock here. We've covered all certain things. I've probably got other things down here, but there's probably things that you would like to ask that we hadn't thought of. So we've got one in the corner.
Yeah, it's a big question, probably. We all know the performing world has taken a big hit, really, in the last few years. Are you generally optimistic for the future? I mean, that would apply both in the UK and maybe abroad.
I think it is really tough for all musicians at the moment, particularly in this country. I think we've got to encourage our politicians to think that support for the arts is actually a really good thing generally, because it's not like throwing money into a hole. It's an economy that contributes hugely to society, not only financially, which it does. It brings return on investment, without a doubt. The general performing arts scene, the culture scene in this country has contributed enormously to the economy. A little bit of seed money from government would be hugely helpful, and when you think of the pathetic amount that the Arts Council had to distribute, so we've got to, I think, yeah, but so if you've got ways of sort of writing, encouraging politicians to do that, I think I hear some fantastic young musicians in my experience of either teaching or younger colleagues. There's a huge quality still being produced, and we should be excited about that. We should celebrate it, and we should nurture it. We should, events like this are actually quite helpful because it sort of gives us an opportunity to hear people we may not have heard before, and for connections to be made. So be hopeful. We've got to live. During COVID, I signed off a lot of my letters to people with defiant hope, because defiant of just sort of even against when things look dark. Bertolt Brecht said, there's a wonderful quote: "In the dark times will there still be seen? Yes, there will be seen about the dark times." And so we should use what we have. If we're in if the world is going to pop, we can still contribute by commenting and being engaged with that, and knowing that the arts is really one of humanity's greatest means of dealing with those dark times, right? And good times as well.
Let's grab another question. That's a fantastic question, fantastic answer, my goodness. Let's grab another question.
I want to ask about mistakes and making them, having a bad night, and how you strike a balance between learning from it, right, and not getting in your own head about it, not obsessing about it.
I've just been speaking. I'm going to say one quick thing, because actually it's something that the one thing you don't want to do is don't show that. If you make a mistake, don't, because it's for audiences it's so off-putting. I mean, you've seen so many times, and somebody doesn't do a very good note, and they do some sort of gesture. You've got to show. Yes, okay, I may have made a mistake, but I'm not going to do it even better next time.
I smile when I make it. Have you ever seen me smile? A nice big smile, I've just made it.
but making mistakes in rehearsal is actually part of the learning process. I mean, I found out about opera that it's particularly in counting. When you're counting rests or something, you need to know. Oh yes, it's 3 bars there.
Anyway, we all make mistakes. Be kind to yourself. My advice to you, young ones, and to myself, is it happens. It just happens. You've lost concentration. Maybe you should have learned that phrase a bit better because you always thought it was a bit sticky and down. It's been proven to be so. Or for example, you're in a strophic song. You sing the 3rd verse first.
And then you're in the right pickle.
Well, then you just say, ladies and gentlemen, I've just sung the 3rd verse first. I'd like to start that again. And then everyone's okay with it. Because you just say, it happens. It's no big deal.
And it's
in a recital, obviously.
Yes, because I was going to say, on a concert platform with 3 other colleagues, for example, and going wrong in that situation, being kind to yourself is really important. But what you said about picking yourself up, getting lost, making a mistake like that, that's one thing that's human. The best thing is how quick you can get back in.
Yeah.
So and then doing better. So as I'm fond of saying, I've gone wrong all over the world, and I've brought shows, operas, recitals, not even concerts, but to a juddering halt. And I've had to, and when I get back in, I am.
Yeah, you made your mistake.
Twice,
That's
yes.
got that out of the way.
Exactly. And I'm really firing all cylinders up with that. I don't think there's a single one of us hasn't made. hasn't made a mistake, and you just were owning up about making a mistake in the proms. We remember them. I've got wounds and scars. I remember them all, but also some of them are great after dinner stories, and the rest of them just make me better. And the baritones, the people that walked in darkness. It's the top of the right-hand page in the Velo score. There's one where the violins come in by themselves, a little cheeky entry. I've come in there. but now I never do. I smile at that point because I go.
Oh, I've done Benedict. Also, I've come in before goes bum 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 bum, but I've come in. Oh my King's College, Cambridge with Sir David Wilcox.
James, actually, my favourite one of those was James Bowman. I was singing in the chorus with the 16, doing Messiah in Utrecht, and with Tom Cutman conducting, and they enjoyed the whole performance so much that we had to do an encore of the Hallelujah chorus. And so the soloists, oh, we'll join in. And da 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 da. Ha! 2 beats early. That was a joy to behold.
There's one thing about, I mean, we will beat ourselves up. It will make us care more, which is something you were saying earlier on. That's certainly true. But also, you've got to let it go. I think, and I'm going to speed us on because I got my eye on the clock. I think we've got time for one more question, and then I've got something else. I got somewhere I need to be at 5, but we will be around. So it ain't over, okay? So we'll be around.
We've got to be out.
Not in this room, anyway. But yes, Sophia.
Firstly, thank you so much. But secondly, I was just wondering, how do you tend to balance in terms of literally lifestyle basis, preparation for operas, preparation for recitals, for oratorio? Is there something that either of you do that
I think our cortisol, or not cortisol, the stress one is pretty high in my case, because being prepared stops me being nervous in the performance, but then if you have a whole load of things happening all at once, it's a complete nightmare. So I just have to say to myself, just to do what you can in the day, get that one, learn one song one day, come back to it, but then start another one in the afternoon or something. But if you keep it going and don't just waste time, I think that will help the stress level. I think that just keep working quite hard. But it is stressful. If you want to choose this life, it's not the easiest life. Both financially, both with families, being away from your little ones, my little one, and friends can sometimes not understand what you do. You come back and they say, oh, you missed my birthday, or maybe they don't call as often because you're just not there. So there are sacrifices in this business. But yeah, I couldn't do anything else.
I'm going to leap in and I just watched. We've got a few seconds for me set. I've got someone once gave me one of those modern sound clocks, so volcanic sound with black sound in it. And I've got an hour timer, and there are sometimes when I know I've got to knuckle down, and it sounds a bit like we're saying a bit like A-level cramming. But I got this timer and I put it right for 1 hour. I'm going to sit with 5 different pieces with no phone. Because YouTube
leave
is
it in
just
the kitchen.
there, and right. The 1 hour, no distractions, and it's that's when I'm at home. Because often when I'm travelling, the train journey back, for example, I know what I'm going to be cramming. You know what I'm going to be cramming too. We're singing it next week. So there's work that doesn't involve any singing at all. It's just putting words and notes back in, even stuff I'm supposed to know. I thought it was an old friend, and I realised it doesn't fit me anymore, so I have to just do that. But it's finding those moments of focus, because if you have a whole afternoon to learn some Italian recits from a Handel opera, you sit down. You've been a whole afternoon, you've learned 1 bar. It's the focus time.
I have to say, I arrange pages. So I say, right, only 2 pages if it's difficult, Richard Strauss, or 3 pages from memory, 5 pages to learn to sing, 2 pages, maybe depending on how many words there are. And I literally go through all my scores and I'm learning them. ideally that day's work, that morning's work, because I wouldn't dream of learning more than 2 pages of recit in one day. Absolutely wouldn't even go there, because it won't go in, and never has, nothing to do with ageing. It's never gone in if I set myself too many. I have to know what the conversation is, how it fits, how it works. So yeah, it's slow, like a donkey, but getting there.
Speaking of being like a donkey, we've got 5 seconds to go before 2 minutes. So why don't we call it quits here? And if anybody's got something they want to ask us, just find us on the way out. But do we need to clear the room physically?
No.
No, that's great. That's lovely. Otherwise, I think I'll I'm just going to thank this man. Bailey, who is the person who put the funds out in the first place that made the whole thing possible. Thank you to Momentum now for looking after that. I want to thank our pianists today who've just been and I obviously to thank myself. I'd like to thank the panel because you are my friends, and you make these jobs so much fun. So thank you for
Before we... There's actually one person in particular who deserves a round of applause, and that's Roddy, because this was his idea, and without him, it wouldn't have happened.